I am so honored to have Antonio Lucio with us for this exciting virtual fireside chat. You can clap.
Well, it's really a pleasure to be here. I just want to say that I just heard the last 5 minutes of Kenny's talk. I just love the way he looks. I need his impact on my life and my wardrobe. I absolutely loved him.
I do too. He's amazing. Yes. Thank you so much for being with us today, Antonio. It's an honor to have you on the stage with me.
The pleasure is all mine. I just wish I was there with you guys. The energy of the room, even though I'm seeing it through the camera, feels amazing. So that's great.
It is. It's an amazing room with so many wonderful people who I am so honored took the time to be with us today. I just read through your short bio and talked about some of the amazing things that you've done in your career. I'd love if you could just take a moment and tell us a little bit more about you in your own words, and also why you agreed to be part of this fireside chat today.
Because you're very convincing. That's the reason why. No. You know, there are two things that define who I am. First and foremost, I am the proud father of 5 amazing daughters. They're all smart and caring and loving and highly opinionated Latinas that bring all sorts of flavor and love to my life. So that's part one. The second part is that I have been a global marketer for 40 years, and I had the privilege of dedicating my life to building businesses, brands, and marketing organizations across a portfolio of very big companies that stood the test of time. So those are the two things that define me. And in doing so, I've always have had a passion for 2 things: marketing transformation and diversity and inclusion. And the 2 of them, I fundamentally believe, go hand in hand.
That's amazing. Thank you. So at the BrandLab, our mission is to change the face and the voice of the marketing and advertising industry. Our 4 pillars are exposure, access, opportunity, and equity. As a Latino man who grew up in Puerto Rico with over 40 years of a career building brands and championing diversity and inclusion for underrepresented groups in our industry, I'd love to hear your thoughts on these 4 pillars and how they have or have not impacted your life.
The pillars are essential. Where I sit, I fundamentally believe that any successful individual in the world today will need to develop 4 things that are totally linked to your pillars. Number 1 is capability, and capability at 2 levels. One is functional, which a lot of people have access to, regardless of gender, ethnicity, race, or social preference. But more importantly, the leadership capability. And that's where we actually, women and people of color, fall behind. When I was growing up in the corporate world, most of the big companies that we all know and care about had very specific developmental programs on the leadership journey. Over time, those things have been delegated to external sources, and not everyone gets those opportunities. And when it comes to women and people of color, the research will say that they get even less. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is community. And when I talk about community, because there's a significant level of underrepresentation of females and people of color within the industry that I worked at, community means outside of your company. You need to have a portfolio of individuals that are doing what you're doing at other different companies, so that you can get the benefit of perspective, the benefit of best practices, and importantly, the benefits of avoiding isolation that many of us during our journey, because we are one of very few, can feel within a company. The way to, and by the way, with very serious consequences at times, the way to deal with that is to build a community of people outside of your company that are part of your industry so that you can share all this amazing information. The third is mentoring. And I, as we discussed the first time that we met, I split mentoring from sponsorship. They are two very different things, both equally important. Mentor is something outside of your company or your school. Someone that only has your best interest in mind, someone that will help you address some of the fundamental questions in life. What's my purpose? What am I doing? Where am I going? Am I in the place that I need to be or not? Is it time to move on? And the last part is sponsorship. That is within the company. That's the people that are going to help you achieve the stretch assignment that any leader requires in order to move forward. A stretch assignment is nothing more than a position where your potential is higher than your capabilities. In other words, you're technically not ready for it in terms of capability, but someone is making a bet on your potential. I get annoyed when it comes to females and people of color. A lot of people say, well, that's a diversity play. And when it is not, it's called a developmental assignment. We need to get rid of those labels because in theory and in practice, neither of these two people that we are talking about is ready for the job. Someone is making a bet on their potential, and every single leader, man, women, person of color, that has been successful has had the access to those stretch assignments. So when you put these four pillars together and you override what you're talking about, the integration is seamless and important. We need representation, we need inclusion, we need the access, we need the mentoring. By the way, we're not asking for anything that any previous successful leader has not had. What we're asking for is to get exactly the same treatment, opportunities, access, mentoring, and support that any successful person will require in order to grow their careers.
I love that. And I will take that and pivot and say, in the room, my question, my challenge to all of us is, who are we mentoring and who are we sponsoring? And if we can't answer that question, let's make some offers. Let's ensure we're paying forward that mentorship and that sponsorship. I know who my mentors and who my sponsors have been, and I know who I am mentoring and sponsoring today. Let's make sure we all do. Thank you. I love that, Antonio.
It has to work on both ways. It has to work at the institutional level, which is what you're talking about, but it needs to work also at the awareness level of the individuals that are participating in the development journey. I didn't know this. I stumbled through it as I went through my career. Of the four, I did have very good leadership capability. People invested on that. I had great sponsors. I did not have community. I did not have mentors until the last decade of my career. And the moment that I found that community outside of my company, the moment that I found those mentors that really helped me think through strategically about life, my life changed for the better. And I think I was able to deliver in the last decade of my career, my corporate career, I'm still working, the best work. And it was because all four cylinders, I was firing on all four cylinders and I was able to create the space for a much more meaningful experience.
I love that. You talk about those last 10 years in your corporate career. I'd love you to go back further and talk to us about early career. Talk about how you got started, how you first found out about this industry as a whole, and then share with us the access points that were given to you, or maybe not given to you.
Like you, like many people, I stumbled into this career. I was going to be a lawyer. My father wanted me to be a lawyer. My father was disappointed for the first 20 years of my career because I was not a lawyer. He actually did not even understand what I did. He actually had questions all the time. I mean, you seem to be doing well, but I have no idea what you do with your day to day. And he will make fun of me in that particular sense. So I needed a job. I had graduated from LSU in history and communications. I was accepted into law school. My family got into some issues that I needed to deal with, so I had to return to the island. And I needed a job. And I was, and again, given the fact that I had been a history major, and I had a lot of social science, all I thought that I could be was a history teacher in high school. I was blessed by the fact that there was an advisor at LSU that sent me this document that said this company that I had never heard before, called Procter & Gamble, is looking for Hispanics to actually join their company either in Cincinnati or in Latin America. So I didn't have anything to lose. I applied, I got a call. I said, I cannot live in Cincinnati at this point in time. I need to return home. We will hire you there. And I started with a lot of people that looked like me, that had the same accent like I did, and that English was their second language. So there was, I felt completely in tune with my first experience, and that is really, really very important. Then I developed my career in the international division, and a lot of the people that I know that are people of color that have made it big in the corporate world, meaning that they were able to transcend either the Black market or the Hispanic market, had the same experience as I did. They developed their career in the international markets where they were one more accent in the pool of talent. The problem that we had in diversity was not ethnic or it was gender. But we all had our accents. We all and we were all the same. Even the Americans had an accent, and by the way, not necessarily the most sophisticated one. So I grew my career. I grew my career in the international division. So I never felt that I was not included in, and I was surrounded by a lot of people that looked like me. So if I saw my boss pursuing an international assignment, as I did when I was in Procter & Gamble, Puerto Rico, I went like, oh, okay, he looks like me, he talks like me, he got an international assignment in Venezuela. That happens to be something that I had never thought about before, that all of a sudden became an opportunity. So my first international assignment was after I left Procter & Gamble, was with Kraft, and it was in Mexico. But the reason that I pursued that was because I saw someone that looked like me that actually was able to do that and succeeded at it. So I grew up in the international division. The first time that I began to feel the issues that we have with diversity and inclusion, which means representation, which means inclusion, and by representation, I mean representations at all levels. I'm not talking about general representation. I mean representation at all levels of the hierarchical ladder. The first time that I felt different in my life was the first time that I left the international division. I took a corporate job, and all of a sudden I noticed that I had an accent. All of a sudden I noticed that I spoke differently. I use my hands more. All of a sudden, I began to experience the rolling of their eyes when I spoke. At that time, I didn't care very much because these people were my peers. So you're going to roll your eyes to me, I'm going to roll all over you. Thank you very much, with accent or without accent. It's a fair fight. So I was blessed that the rolling of the eyes happened at a moment in my career where I had the self-confidence, I had the body of work and the credibility to be able to manage that seamlessly. If that rolling of their eyes would have happened when I was starting my career, I do not think that I would be having this conversation with you. And I've said this many times. If Antonio Lucio, who now is a Hall of Famer, all that type of stuff, had started in the domestic US division, you would have never heard of him. I would not be here today. I would have never had the experiences at Visa as CMO, global CMO, HP, and then Meta. Never would have happened. The system would have pushed me down. I was from a state university where most of the people in these companies were coming from much bigger and reputable schools. Now I teach at one of those. Thank you very much. Coming from LSU. My accent, my mannerisms, my life experience was so fundamentally different, and I did not see around me anyone in particular that had that. So that's why I am so passionate. The moment that I was able to achieve a bully pulpit, the moment that I was able to notice, understand what the dynamics were in the United States when it comes to women, people of color, and people of different sexual orientations, that needed to change. But it's very different to be an activist when you're starting, to be a change agent when you actually have the power, you have the budget, you have the organization to actually be able to make holistic and systemic change, which is what we need to do.
Thank you. That was amazing. I think there's so many important nuggets to pull out of what you just shared, right? One of the most important things I heard is you wouldn't have achieved the success you achieved today if you had started in the United States. That's a really bold statement. And when I think about that, and I think about the young people in the room today who are starting in their careers, I'm here to say I refute that. And I want to ensure that that is not true for you and for your careers. When I think about that, I think about the why behind the internships and the fellowships we provide at the BrandLab. We purposely provide access to these roles in a cohort model. So there is someone else to walk into an organization, so that there aren't young people walking into the organizations getting the eye rolls. There's not young people walking into the organization feeling alone or feeling like they don't have a cohort. That's part of the why behind the model. But most importantly, the reason we're here is to ensure that no one in your generation can say or has to say, I didn't get the opportunities, and I know it was because of my race or ethnicity. I never want that to be true again. So
the other thing, and it's a very important point. The other point, and again, I have a rather interesting perspective because I am connected to my alma mater, to LSU. So I'm in the board of the foundation. I have scholarships for young Hispanics and all that type of stuff. And then I turn around and talk to some of the Yale individuals. Perspective is the fundamental difference, and what I want your audience to understand is that they should not limit themselves to what they see.
Yes,
there is an entire continent called the United States filled of opportunities, and by the way, there's a whole world out there filled with opportunities as well. And it should be a role, and the role of the companies that they're working with, and the role of the schools that they're working that they're studying, and to make sure that they understand that there is bigger than your hometown or your home city of your tri-state area. There is a country and there is a world out there where you can make a difference, and you may feel less different. If you will still have your American accent, by the way.
Yes, I love that. So when you think about some of your early mentors post-college, you talked about, one particular mentor that made it intro to you, created an opportunity for you to go to Procter & Gamble. Can you talk to the young people in the room with us today about how to ask for opportunities? If opportunities aren't given, how do we ask for those opportunities? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, it's called learning to build a network. And the sooner that, I wish I had started building my network when I was at the university or when I was on my first job. Every person that you meet is an opportunity for you to build a relationship. And those relationships should be built in common interest. Again, it's very easy. So, hi, can you be my mentor? It's not going to work very well. It normally means someone comes to your university and is giving a speech and it resonates with you, so you try to carry that into a conversation about that. So it's almost like you begin to build a relationship first that will evolve into a mentoring sort of relationship. It's a way in which we see life, and as people of colors, we sometimes don't look at the world the same way. There is a professor from Oxford that studies serendipity, which is a fascinating topic because it's almost like this is kind of metaphysical stuff. It's actually not. What he did was they simulated a restaurant type of setting. They had a $20 bill in the door. They had filled the coffee shop with people to the point that there was only one chair available. And next to that chair, Antonio Lucio or someone like him was there. And then they recorded how people interacted. And there was a group of people that went in, opened the door. Oh my gosh, there's only one chair there, a long line. Let me get the coffee. They left the room and it was like regular day. There were other people that, well, oh my God, a $20 bill, boom. Oh, there's only one chair there. Oh my God, I think that's Antonio Lucio. He's reading the paper. They get there, they have a great conversation. They come out and said, my God, fascinating 15 minutes. I have his email. I'm going to continue to have the conversation. It is the same experience. One, you're looking at the world with eyes of opportunity and eyes of trying to build relationships, not transactions, relationships. And the other one is you're just sort of going through the motions and let me apply online to see what happens. And I just heard that my friend said this, it's almost like, and white men from the Northeast have been trained to do this since they were born. It is second nature for them to approach someone that they don't know because of the self-security that they have, because of the interactions that they have had. And it's second nature to them. For the rest of us, this is a skill that we need to learn and we need to test. But it starts with a mindset, looking at the world as filled with opportunities to build meaningful relationships will actually facilitate the way to build a network and to get the mentors and allies that you're going to need throughout your career. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense, and I love it. And when I look at this room, I think, okay, here is a room full of opportunities, not just for young people, but for all of us to make those connections and to look at the world as a room full of opportunities. I love it. That's amazing. So transitioning to work, I'd love to talk more about the absolutely amazing career that you had for the last 40 plus years. We've talked a lot about the BrandLab, and one of the ways we ensure access is through paid access to first roles, through internships and fellowships. I personally stumbled into marketing after graduate school, after trying my hand at sales and realizing it wasn't quite the right thing for me. And when I think about the internships that are available today, ensuring that young people have the opportunity to fully utilize those internships, to provide those learning experiences, to look at the world as a world full of opportunities. What additional advice do you have for young people working in an internship, maybe having a manager, but wanting to have access to and conversations with mentors or people like yourself within the organization?
The best way to approach anyone, the person in the cafe to someone that you meet in your event today at the BrandLab, or someone in your organization, is to find points of commonalities and adding value first. So I am not going to approach you, oh, hi, how are you? I would like for you to be my mentor, or I would like to get to know you better. It is about, I know that you have a passion for diversity and inclusion. I share that passion and I have some thoughts for you. It's being on the receiving end of that, where we don't have time for anything. Diversity and inclusion is part of your purpose in life, is part of the work that you do. Setting the time to meet this young individual that has thoughts to provide to you becomes part of your work. It's not like let me spend some time with young people because it's an important thing to do. It is, but the moment that you bring together the fact that I am meeting this individual that took the time to know who I am, and because this is not, it has to be that level of planification. I want to meet you, I share a passion with you, and I want to contribute to your agenda. Everyone is capable of unique and differentiated thoughts. And the advantage that people that are in college or people that are new into an organization have is the freshness of a new perspective. Any senior leader will be more than happy to spend the time with you, as long as your approach is about adding value first. And I have done that and continue to do that. This is not something that I used to do. No, I continue to do that. I want to build a relationship with someone. I will add value first. I understand that you're passionate about transformation. I am as well. Let me share with you what I've learned over the last 18 months, where I switched from the corporate world into capability building. The conversation just shifts. One is something that it is important, interesting, because it's going to help my agenda. And by the way, in the process, I'm going to meet someone rather interesting and fresh from college or from the internship group. In the other one, it's like one more obligation that frankly, I don't have time for, because I have 15,000 people that want to meet with me every single day. So approaching people from a point of common passion or common interest, and adding value first is the right way to approach this, versus, hi, my name is such and such, I would like to have coffee with you. Yeah, I would like to have coffee with everyone that I meet. I still have a job to do. I can only have coffee with a limited number of people. I am going to be selected, and I'm going to choose those that I found most interesting. the ones that are going to help me add perspective to my agenda. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I agree, we can learn so much from everyone, and it's about how we approach people and asking for the opportunity in the right way, in a very respectful way as well. I'd love to take some time to focus on the global part of your experience. I have personally had the opportunity to lead a global manufacturing team, but I've never lived internationally. I've never had the experience to grow in my career in that way. I would love to hear more about your perspective on marketing from a global perspective and how it has impacted the way you approach and think about our industry. And if you could provide any additional perspective to leaders in the room as we all think about our next steps as well.
If you really want to have a first-hand experience what diversity actually does for business, you should actually have experiences outside of the United States and take global, first local market jobs and then global jobs, where the only way that you're actually going to be able to do the offering and the servicing required to win in the different individual country marketplace is by having a very different mindset, where you need to be completely open to very different interpretations of the data that you have available, and to add a level of nuance and cultural context to any and everything decision that you do. So to me, it is a very strong recommendation that I have for everyone. The world is becoming a really global place because it manifests itself through digital means. By the way, the moment that this moves a couple of steps further in terms of generative AI or even the metaverse, the whole notion of learning to understand how to build brands and how to build businesses in a frontierless environment becomes a critical skill. So even if you want to work in the United States and want to make a life here, most of the business that have been around for a very long time, the ones that stood the test of time, are business that are doing this, that are building very significant revenue base outside of the United States. So to me, it is almost a mandatory skill, and it is something that will enrich you personally and professionally to ways that you're not seeing today. It is hard work. There's no question about that. And the moment that you leave your environment where you have your community and you have your friends and you have an entire network of what constitute life, and you move to a different country and all of a sudden the phone doesn't ring because there's no one that will call you for coffee on a Saturday afternoon, and you have to build this from scratch. Becomes a rather interesting challenge. If you have a partnership that is healthy and vibrant, this is the type of assignments that will bring you much closer together, because frankly, all you have is you, your partner, and your immediate family to build a life around for whatever years you're in. If you don't, because you've been relying on the external expanded communication social network to live your life, that will come out immediately. So I lost a marriage in one international assignment because we weren't ready, and I was way too focused on my career development, and I learned and paid dearly for that. So it's not easy to do, but at the same time, I think that the trade-offs of what it can do to you if you have the right family infrastructure to go along with you is invaluable, really invaluable.
Thank you. I just got the note in the back of the room that we need to start to wrap up. So before we do that, we are going to transition to questions. I want to make sure we take at least one question from the room, and we're going to take one question online. So I will ask Juliana, our online moderator, first, if there are any questions that have been presented in our online chat.
Okay. This question is, I adore the point that connection making is second nature to the educated, affluent white males, but less of a strength for women and BIPOC individuals. Approaching new relationships with an eye for adding value is a great trip. How might people with less experience, with fewer connections, best apply that approach?
You have to own the building of your network, and you're going to start small. You're here at the BrandLab. This is like an endless opportunity for you to begin to have meaningful conversations. You know, the good thing that we have now is this thing. I can go and right now pretty much Google anyone in the room and figure out very clearly what are these people's passion points, and what can I share to do that. And that's how you start. You start small, and then over time it becomes second nature, and over time you end up building a portfolio of meaningful relationships, of people that are adding values to each other's lives, that will then help you move forward. But you have to start. That's my biggest provocation to you is, you know, let's get rid of our own limitations in that area and reach out. And you know, even if you end up at a 50% success rate, it is significantly more than what you have right now sitting where you are. So that's the way to do it. And by the way, that struggle will continue to be with you. I was in my leadership acceleration project. I had this amazing Black woman, actually educated in some of the most amazing schools in the world and working for a great company. And what she was telling me is, this thing of social capital is what I lack. So it's hard for me to go to the CEO to actually go and establish a conversation. I see some of my mates that went to the same big schools that I did that do it more frequently. What's your advice for me? I said, you have to put yourself out there. You're only going to get good at this with practice. If at the beginning you're faking it, it's okay. Put the mask of the self-assured person that needs to talk to the CEO, and over time you will become that self-assured person. But you have to start, and you all have so much to contribute. Most of you can actually provide a unique point of view to those leaders that they currently do not have, but they don't know that yet. You have to bring it forth by a very specific invitation to have a conversation about a topic that is relevant to them.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We'll take one more question in the room. Do we have a question in the room? Kweku Tiangelo, thank you.
Antonio, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to hear your story. Great to hear about your experience. I'm wondering, as we talk about access, what conversations are being had at the C-suite level, at the executive level, regarding a reliance on or requirement of companies for new hires to have four-year degrees. Because the reality is, I mean, you've been talking a lot about schools, so I promise this isn't a gotcha question, but the reality is that for most people, you're talking about a $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 investment just to get considered for a job in marketing or advertising. Have you heard about a movement towards scaling back potentially only requiring a 2-year degree or you know, state school, tech school kind of experience?
A lot, and very recently. So I think that will change. You have some of the big tech companies like Google saying that you don't need the four college degree. And by the way, we're going to give you an accreditation here that will actually train you in the skills that you are required to have to actually get a high-paying job with us. So I am very encouraged by that, because the moment that the big tech companies begin to move into this particular direction, it becomes a trend. Having said that, I think we are, as the world moves into a generative AI place, where, as someone that I spoke with yesterday said, competence will be free. Exceptional work is what's going to require. That's going to require two things: a very different type of education, not necessarily the one that we're talking about, and development of soft skills. So having a critical thinking mind in a world of generative AI, where you have to discern as to what's editable and what's not, what's true and what's not. It's going to fundamentally change the way in which we will need to educate the next generation coming forward. So I don't think the answer is a 4-year college degree. I think the doors have been open for a new approach. I am just saying that as we move into a generative AI world, the whole question of what are the skills that are required and how do we ensure that those skills are available for everyone is going to be perhaps one of the questions that will define the next generation.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. Okay. Can we all please join me in giving an amazing round of applause to Antonio for joining us today?
Can I just say one more thing before I go?
Say it one more time.
Can I say just one more thing before I go?
Go, please.
The one thing that I'm going to ask each and every one of you, as you begin your journey and you become involved in the stress of the work, finding work, succeeding at work and all that, make sure that you're taking care of yourself first. Work will not be if you're not there. Family will not be if you're not there to the best of your abilities. If there's one thing that I made a mistake with in my great career, was not paying attention to the signals that my body was sending me. The fact that I didn't have community made it worse. The fact that I didn't have mentors made it worse. But in addition to having your community and your mentors, please, please, please take care of yourself. It is not selfish. It's actually selfless. It is the most generous thing that you can do for those that you love and those that you care for. So please, please, please anchor yourself, take care of yourself. Everything else you can do with the skills that you're going to be acquiring over the next couple of years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.